I stopped buying real estate, and I want to have an honest conversation about why and hopefully put it all out there. If you're a real estate investor, I think what I'm about to talk about is probably the most important thing I've ever talked about on this channel. And if you haven't bought real estate yet, then I think that this will shape how you approach buying real estate in 2024. But before I get into the reasons why I stopped buying real estate, let's just take a step back. If you're a real estate investor, if you've ever met other real estate investors, whether it be at a conference or at a meetup, or maybe just out in the streets, maybe at work, you connect with another real estate investor that, does real estate on the side, then you've probably come across this point where you're talking to this real estate investor and one of you talks about door count, meaning how many doors you have in your portfolio. And if you're at places like meetups or conferences, that's sort of like the main introduction that you have to anybody. Hi, I'm Rob. How many doors do you have? I have 18 doors. I have 40 doors. Blah, 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 right? And it becomes this just this one-upping nature, right? This one-upping nature where you're like, oh yeah, like everyone's got a lot of doors in this, in this community or in this network that I have, and thus I need more doors. And so I have found that over the last 7 years of investing in real estate, it has become this like keeping up with the Joneses type of things where you just feel like you need to buy more real estate. And I've just realized finally at the culmination of my career that door count is kind of useless. It doesn't really mean anything. It's not really all that significant. What matters more is how much money you actually make from the doors that you have. And so I say this because, I have 40 doors. And some people are really impressed by that and some people aren't. And it doesn't really matter because it's not about having 40 or 1,000 doors. It's about how much money do I actually make from the doors. And what I wanted to talk about today was there's so much conversation happening around this idea of door count, but there really isn't enough conversation around I'm crying now. No, I'm just kidding. There's not enough conversation around portfolio revenue optimization. Now it's 3 fancy words, whatever. All it really means is there's not enough conversation about what's the most amount of money that I can make on the real estate portfolio that I have. And this is really important because a lot of times what happens as a real estate investor is you buy a property and you rent it out. And let's say it's a long-term rental. You have a tenant in, maybe you do a couple repairs, then you get another tenant and they stay there for 12 months. And year over year, because of appreciation and inflation, you might be able to charge a little bit more rent. And thus you say, okay, yeah, that one's kind of performing well and I'm going to go buy another one. And then if you're a short-term rental investor, you say, oh, I'm going to buy this Airbnb and I'm going to furnish it and I'm going to do all this stuff and I'm going to try to make money with it. And then it starts making $1,000 or $2,000 a month. And then you say, yeah, okay, great. Like that's looking pretty good. I could make it better, but I should really save that money so that I can buy my next short-term rental. And all these Airbnb hosts are out there just trying to buy more Airbnbs because they're trying to multiply how many times they're making $1,000 to $2,000 every single month, which I totally understand. Like it is a logical thing. And I've been there many times. As I mentioned, 40 doors, right? Like that's been my game. That's been my motif, if you will, for the last 7 years as an Airbnb investor. And over the last year, I've had a bit of an epiphany where I've just started to realize that so much effort goes into real estate in general that it's really never, like the path of least resistance is never to buy more property, ever. Like that's rarely the actual answer to the how do I make more money problem. It's not go buy another door. It's how do I make more money with what I got? And I sort of illustrate this because I've been tinkering over the last year with my personal portfolio, and we'll get to now why I stopped buying. And I sort of realized that in my mind, I launched these Airbnbs with all these grand plans to make them better. And I never did. There was no follow through. And this is the biggest downfall for most Airbnb hosts is they buy this property and they say, when I start making money, I'm going to do this and I'm going to add this amenity and I'm going to invest this over here. And what actually happens is their property probably ends up doing okay. And so most hosts say, well, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to buy this other thing. And that's how I've been this whole time. I've always had all these great plans for all of my properties. And I've just gotten so busy scaling my short-term rental portfolio and my rental portfolio that time is way more important than cash flow. And thus I've realized I just don't have that much time to go out and buy more real estate. So it's left me with this, like, I don't want to say real estate midlife crisis, but I really think it's an epiphany or a revelation that I've had where I realized that I've been sitting on a gold mine for 7 years and I didn't even know. And the chances are that you probably are sitting on a gold mine yourself that you don't even know about if you own real estate property, whether it's long-term or short-term rentals. And so let's talk about like what goes into buying a short-term rental, and hopefully this will start to like get the wheels turning for you. But let's say that you buy a $500,000 house. That's just like a standard Airbnb. I'm not going to say it's the low end or high end. I'm just putting that out there I can math this out pretty easily. Let's talk about what goes into buying a $500,000 house. So you got to spend $500,000. Your down payment on that is going to be $100,000 at a minimum because you're going to put 20% down. And then let's say that house is 2,000 square feet. Well, if that is roughly $15 a square foot to furnish, you're looking at $35,000 to furnish it. And then on top of that, let's say you have miscellaneous repairs and you got like a few little things that you have to address and you spend $5,000 getting that up and running. We're not even going to talk about closing costs or anything like that. I'm just going to go down payment, furniture, and minor repairs just to get it up and running. We're looking at $140,000 that you have to that you have to invest to buy a $500,000 property. Now, aside from the fact that that's a lot of money, the other aspect of this is that we're trying to make a return on our money. And for a long time, the gold standard for short-term rentals was a 20% return. So just a cash-on-cash return, just so I can get to that really fast. I want to try to keep this to where everyone can understand it. Cash-on-cash return is a metric that is most used in this industry to determine, especially like short-term rental specifically, how hard your money is working for you in 1 year's time. And so it's on a yearly basis. So if you invest $100,000, you have to take the money that you invest and then the money that you profit, and that's how you get to your cash-on-cash return. So if you make $20,000 profit after all of your expenses and you invested $100,000, then you have a cash-on-cash return of 20%. That is what we're trying to do. Now, in 2024, with interest rates the way they are, I think you're looking at probably a 10 to 15% cash-on-cash return for a short-term rental. And if you're a long-term rental investor, well, good luck. I don't even know. Probably break even to 5%, somewhere in there. But regardless, that's the metric that we're chasing in this game. And so in this example of $500,000, we have to invest $140,000. And if we want to make a 20% return on $140,000, then we roughly have to make $28,000, I believe. Let me make sure. I don't want to sound dumb on screen. Yeah, $28,000 profit. So every year on this property, we have to make $28,000 to make a decent profit on the $140,000 that we invested. Meaning we have to make just over $2,000 a month on an Airbnb. $2,000 a month. Probably closer to like $2,200 or $2,300 a month, but in profit. And that's what we're chasing on a $140,000 investment. Now, I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible because I know we don't have fancy animations and all that stuff. But the reason I say that is all of what I just talked about is hard. To make a 20% return over $2,000 a month, to go and find the property, to get in touch with the realtor, to get in touch with the broker, to then buy the property and then furnish it and then find your cleaner and then your handyman and then your pool person and your lawn person and your pest control person, your Airbnb Avengers, if you were. And then on a long-term rental, your property management team. Well, you just did so much work to try to make 20% return on your money. And you can do that maybe once or twice a year, but once you get to my point and you have the ability to buy, I don't know, let's say 10 or 15 properties every single year, playing that game every single time is really not all that scalable, and it's actually really, really hard. So I started thinking to myself, well, how can I still do this short-term rental game without completely departing from it, because I love short-term rentals and like it's just not feasible for me to buy a ton of them because I've got so many companies and things going on, and I'm teaching you guys how to do this. And I just realized I'm like, there's so many more ways to make money with the properties that I currently have. And it's honestly kind of mind-blowing that I let it go for so long. And so what I've been pushing people towards over the last year, if you've been watching my channel, is I think that we're in this era with short-term rentals where you really have to create experiences and you have to have unbeatable amenities. And in some ways it is an amenities arm race to be the top 10% in this industry. Before, you could toss a mattress in an apartment and you'd probably make $1,000 or $2,000 every single month. And then it just doesn't work like that anymore. Like, so many people have been crying uncle. They've been saying my Airbnb is bleeding. They're saying the Airbnb bust. And for a bit, I was like, oh, maybe there's some truth to that. But I've realized there are more people coming into the industry, and the top 10% are absolutely crushing it. And the bottom 30% that have been there for a long time are losing out because they didn't put any time or attention into like the actual experience of their Airbnb. And so for me, when I started seeing my revenue decline, my first thought was, oh, I'll just go buy more Airbnbs and then I'll get back to where I was. But then I started examining my properties and realizing there's so much more potential than I ever realized. And I'd like to give you a couple of tangible examples of how I did this. So let's talk about my Scottsdale property first. I've got my stats pulled up right here. I'm trying to do as little editing as possible on this, but basically right here, I'm going to put my stats for February 1st, 2023 through February 28th. As you can see, my net payout was $11,384 in 2023. Now my expenses on this run at least $20,000 a month, meaning I lost about $9,000 on my Scottsdale property, which is honestly a little embarrassing. I was not expecting to have such a loss on that. Now, this will be the only edit I have on this video because my memory card is dying, so I have to swap memory cards, but then we're back to it. Bye. And we're back. One edit. That's all I had. It's fine. I'm going to do okay. So, as I mentioned, my February data for this property was at around $11,384 for that month. And so for me, I was like thinking of all my different exit strategies, and I was like, do I sell it? Do I turn it into a sober living facility or like a retirement home, all that kind of stuff? And I just started thinking, I was like, well, this house has a lot of potential, and all I really did was, kind of furnish it, spruce it up, and throw it on the market, and the market wasn't responding. And so over the course of a year, I was talking to my business partner on this, and I was like, let's put a pickleball court in. It's like really popular. It's one of the most popular amenities out there right now. And basically, we did it. Someone reached out to me. Sorry, I got a text message. I really should be on Do Not Disturb. But I had a follower reach out and they say, hey, I do pickleball courts. Will you, I'll do it for you. I'll give you a great rate. And so he actually ended up doing this pickleball court for me for $22,000, which is a really big investment because, again, for me, I'm thinking like, yeah, I could spend $22,000 on this pickleball court, or I could go buy a property. Maybe I could even do a rental arbitrage property. I was like thinking all these different things of what I could do with $22,000 instead of reinvesting it back in my portfolio. But I had this bleeding asset, and I was like, I've got to do the best that I can for this property so that we can fix it. And so we did the pickleball court, and we actually ended up doing a triple pickleball court. And we'll do one photo right here. Sorry, Caleb, I know I told you no edits, but here we go. One photo. That's the triple pickleball court right there. So this $11,000 figure I told you in February was before I installed that pickleball court. And then in March, my revenue was $14,563. Still no pickleball court. And then in April, my revenue was $20,647. So what I'm showing you here is that I lost money every single year. And so we add this pickleball court because, again, I'm thinking about, I'm starting to get the jump on this whole like portfolio revenue optimization thing. And it really churned things around for me because we went from having $11,384 in revenue to $40,559 in revenue 1 year later after I installed the pickleball courts. Now, you might be thinking, well, Rob, that's 1 month's data, like blah, 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 blah. Okay, cool. That's totally fair. So I'll show you March. In March, our revenue just on Guesty was $33,642. Again, and this is versus last March, which was $14,563. Put that right there. And the crazy thing about this March data that I'm showing you, the 33,000 one, is I got a direct booking, which isn't accounted for this. And so when I added all of that up, this March, the month that we're currently in, my revenue is looking to be around $42,500 for that same Scottsdale property, an increase of about $30,000, which is honestly pretty crazy. And then we get to last April, which I want to show you that too. Again, $20,647, and now we're the current bookings on the calendar for this upcoming April is $30,958 and we still have like half that month booked. So it's very possible that on that specific property, we're probably going to do $40,000, maybe even $50,000, because April is the high season out in Scottsdale. So what have we learned here? I could have gone and bought a property or an arbitrage unit or whatever. I don't really like arbitrage anymore, so I hate even saying that. I don't want to give you all ideas of what to do with $20,000, but I do have a few units, and that's why I'm like, I did explore that route last year. But basically, I was thinking like, what can I do with this $22,000? I end up investing it back into my portfolio, and as a result, I don't have the definitive numbers here yet, but it's looking like this property will make anywhere from $100,000 to $150,000 more in revenue as a result of this one amenity. But just for these specific months, I've managed to gross between $20,000 to $30,000 more every single month in the high season, and also in the other. We gross more in the other months too. November was the same way. We grossed $39,000 this last November. The November before, it was like $13,500. So this trend is actually like, the numbers look really, really good. And the amount of time that it took me to go out and install this amenity was no time at all. I communicated with the pickleball contractor. He went out and did it. Let's say it took 5 hours of my time. 5 hours of my time to make over a 100% ROI in one single month is absolutely worth it, because for me, I didn't have to go out and buy a property and set it up and do all that jazz. And I guess what I'm getting at is we're chasing properties over here, trying to make a return, trying to make that golden 20% return. But what if you could invest back into your property and make more than a 20% return? Now, obviously on this one, I've already made, 100% return on it, far more than that. But on other properties that I've started reinvesting back into, I'm also seeing an increase in revenue, and it's pretty consistent across the board. And so for me, like I've got this Tennessee property. I'll show it right here. This is the tree house that I built. Cost me $45,000 to build. And a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, you spent $45,000 on this tree house deck and you're so dumb and this and that. Well, you got to think about it from my perspective. We're chasing a 20% return. So by that standard, if I invest $45,000 in that specific amenity, drives $8,000 more in revenue, then it's a really great ROI, because that extra revenue is all profit for me. And it's looking so far, based on the numbers, that specific amenity will help me gross maybe, $15,000, maybe $20,000 more on that specific property in 1 year, which would equate to a 35 to 45% ROI on that specific investment. And so now it's got my wheels turning. And again, that was a lot easier to do than going out and buying a new property and furnishing it and automating it and all that stuff. So it's got me thinking like, should I just continue to go down this route where I just look at the dogs of my portfolio and try to make them show dogs and really invest back into them and make as much money as possible? And the clear answer is yes. As a matter of fact, I'm doing this right now. I'm adding a pickleball court to one of my properties in College Station, and I built a mini golf course on my beach house in Crystal Beach. I don't have data on that yet, but so far the numbers are above where they were last year. And so I want you to really think about, as you scale up your portfolio and before you even think about buying another short-term rental or long-term rental, how can I make more money with what I've got? If you're a long-term rental investor watching this, you might be like, well, I can't add a pickleball court because that won't really that's not conducive to my clientele or who I'm serving. But there are ways that you can actually add revenue as a long-term rental investor. You can add an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, if you will. and I hope you will. You can add extra square footage. You can remodel your home. You can do so many things to your current long-term rental portfolio that will A, add another income stream to that same property, or B, increase the current rents that you already have. And that to me will always result in a higher ROI than going out and buying a property. So I hope this was helpful. I hope you start to think about this, but I think really what I'm getting at is don't buy another property until you've squeezed every dime possible out of the current property that you have, because I promise you, you are sitting on money that you don't even know about. Sometimes for the Airbnb hosts out there, that simple thing can be investing $500 into an amazing photo shoot, maybe add some lifestyle photography that makes your property stand out from the competition. That's a very simple way to do it. And it's something that we do all the time. We're always revamping photos and getting new stuff taken. You know, Barker Studios, you've seen him on the channel before. I have him go out to my properties every so often, and he shoots stuff for me, and he's the best in the business, and he is directly correlated to me making more money on my properties every time I have new photos up. As a matter of fact, this photo right here, he took, and literally the day that I posted it, you know, it was crickets for a long time, but the day that I posted it, I got $18,000 in Airbnb bookings on this same Scottsdale property. So I promise you, even something as simple as photos can have an incredibly high ROI. If you think about it this way, if you can spend $500 on photos and those photos drive $1,000 more every single year, which for some people it can be significantly more than that, but let's just say $1,000, you just made a 200% ROI on that photo shoot. So when you think about it that way, what are the different levers in your portfolio that you can pull that can make you more money? For short-term rental hosts, another thing that you could do if you're in the Smoky Mountains, for example, or really anywhere, is add a hot tub. A hot tub can add up to $49 on your ADR, your average daily rate, every single year. That's $50 basically. And if you have, let's say you're 50% occupied, 50% occupied would be 182 days a year. And if you could add $50 a night, that's $9,125 that you can add to your revenue every single year. A hot tub will cost you $7,000. So that right there is an amenity that you could possibly have over a 100% ROI on. But let's just say that it only adds $25 to your average daily rate, and it only helps you make $4,500 more every single year. Well, guess what? That is a 50% ROI. If you could make 50% ROI on any investment, you would be a billionaire by the time you were like 35, 40, 45, depending on when you started investing. That's insane. So you got to start thinking about what can I do in my current portfolio to get these 20, 30, 40, 50% ROIs. And if you can do this over and over and over again, that will significantly alter your portfolio architecture, your portfolio revenue, and make it so much more worth it for you to just reinvest back into the portfolio than buying something out in the market. Okay? That is today's lesson. I will say one last thing. If you have gotten to that point where you've optimized your revenue to the highest and you're ready for that next property, or let's say that you want to buy your first property because everything I just said excites you and you like pulling those different levers, then I'm really pushing people into the world of creative hosting, which is this world where you combine creative finance and Airbnb hosting together to basically get better returns. And creative hosting is basically, if you could take over a property, seller finance or sub 2, and get into a property for way less money out of pocket than a conventional loan, then your returns also start to go up significantly. Most of the time, me and my students, we're trying to lock down deals at less than 10% down at an average of 2.5% to 5.5% interest per property. And when you start to play those levers on top of the amenity game, things can really start to get pretty wild. So if you want to learn more about creative hosting or how all that works, I have a case study in the description down below. Click that, give it a watch. But how do I end these? It's so weird. I usually rehearse endings. I get like 20 takes whenever I can edit these videos. But until next time, how about that? Thanks for watching. And if you like this type of video, let me know. And I'll do more of these one-take wonders. I guess this is technically a two-taker, but hey, sue me. All right, bye.